Cadillac done again? Guys everywhere. Can't be scared. Get you the paper.
John Lacassi here along with Phil Nicolosi, JD of Internet Legal Armor. So Phil, we took a small hiatus from our Roku channel. It's been about a year since our last video.
Has it been that long?
I believe so. So we're looking to get back into it here with you guys and create some new content. And since our last video, the GDPR has been a very hot topic in our industry. If you guys remember, I'm a web developer and online marketer. I work with local business clients. And in my world, Phil, there's two types of clients right now. There are clients that really don't care about having the privacy disclosures they need to on their website. And then there's the other type of clients that are very, very proactive in trying to make sure that they are following current FTC statutes and having the proper disclosures on the website. So the EU released the GDPR. What is it and who does it protect?
Yeah, and I think that's really spurred a lot of interest in U.S.-based businesses along the privacy front. You're exactly right. So the GDPR essentially is an expansion of the EU Privacy Directive, which is was the existing data privacy law throughout all the member countries of the EU. The GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, is basically a regulatory framework that's now been implemented by the EU that expands upon it, and it's literally a framework. It's a comprehensive framework that's giving natural EU citizens much more rights to control their own data and have disclosures about how it's used than they had before the GDPR was enacted. Frankly, it's as simple as describing it as a major regulatory framework to put mechanisms in place. You as a data collector, so that you're not abusing the privacy rights of EU natural citizens. And it's really that simple. What it is it's a regulatory nightmare because it's going to require businesses that are not exempt to have to go through a whole bunch of regulatory hoops to make sure they're complying with it in terms of audits and assessments and things of that nature. But to keep it simple for right now, the GDPR is just an expansion upon the existing EU data privacy framework. And it came out about a year and a half ago officially, and it's as simple as that, John.
Does it expand the current definition of personal data?
It does. It sort of future-proofs everything. We talk about unique device identifiers and things of that nature. We talk about bundling information. So it does expand the definition of personal data. And that's one of the things that's a little bit different from the old EU existing EU directive on data protection, which is what it's called, the EU directive on data protection. Now we have the GDPR. And essentially the term personal data will still apply just like it's defined now, and it keeps the same broad definition, but online identifiers and location data, IP addresses, mobile device IDs, and things that can uniquely identify you, those items are now being addressed, and the definition of personal data is expanded through adding those items in. So, and as you've seen in your own marketing, John, and I've seen with my own clients, using a super cookie to, and then bundling that with an email address or something like that, or taking your actual device ID, any way that I can track you as an individual, that's going to be covered now under the GDPR, and in some cases even including your IP address, unless it's just an IP address by itself, and that's even up to interpretation. Wow. So it does actually expand the definition of personal data quite a bit as compared to the old EU Privacy Directive.
Does it apply to our viewers' businesses if they're located in the U.S.?
Well, that's a great question. That's kind of the meat of this discussion today and what I think our viewers are going to be most interested in. So it does protect the rights of EU natural citizens. EU natural citizen is anyone located within the European Union while you're collecting data from them, even if they're not an EU citizen. If you're located in the EU, apparently you have rights. So the GDPR will cover that. Now, what that means is if you're a US-based business, just because you're not located in the EU or an EU member country, you still may have to comply with the GDPR. So what it comes down to is what's your book of business in the EU, and it's really that simple. So it doesn't really matter where you're located. It matters to the types of the volume of EU citizens, EU traffic that's coming on your website. Are you targeting your marketing to the EU? Are you doing things that will be consistent with a business that's contemplating an EU customer base or an EU visitor base? Now, if it's just incidental traffic, or if it's a very small percentage of your customer, or your visitor, or your subscriber base, maybe 1% or a fraction of 1%, and it's very incidental, and you don't do any targeted marketing. No PPC ads targeted in the EU. You don't have a presence in the EU. You literally just have a website, and the occasional EU citizen might stumble upon it. Then, in my opinion, no, you're going to be exempt as a U.S. business. So that's the good news. And now I will say that there is interpretation on that. There are recitals, specifically Article 23, and there are recitals that are put out that help you interpret the provisions of the GDPR. So in interpreting those recitals, it is my opinion that as long as you're not targeting your marketing efforts to the EU specifically, and if it's just merely incidental, and I've used that word incidental because I think that's the most appropriate word to describe whether you would be exempt or not. It's got to be very minor and very incidental EU visitors or EU subscribers or EU purchasers, and then I think that you will be considered to be exempt.
Are there any blanket exemptions though, Phil, for small business?
There are not.
There's not?
There's not, and that's a big misconception because a lot of my clients have asked me, well, I've got less than 250 employees, so aren't I exempt under the GDPR? There is no blanket exemption. The businesses with less than 250 employees, as a blanket statement, are going to be exempt from certain record keeping requirements and appointing a data privacy officer and things like that. But there is no blanket exception, like there's a cutoff. If I have a certain number of employees, I'm either exempt from the GDPR or I'm not. That's not accurate. Again, it's all about your target marketing base and your customer/visitor base. That's going to dictate whether the GDPR should be a concern for your business.
So Phil, I think we're going to go ahead and do a mini-series on GDPR, this being the first of a few videos. So let's go ahead and leave the rest of our questions and commentary for the next video. And in the meantime, if you're viewing this episode right now, please go to internetlegalarmor.com if you are a small business owner, because you need comprehensive website legal documents for your website, and internetlegalarmor.com allows you to do that. And we will see everybody in the next video.
Sounds great. Thanks, John.
Turn into a meal. Use your skills. Gotta make it flip.